Hi, Dr. Ramos. I'm Sarah Ferguson, and my mini lecture is about nonverbal communication. I must first start by saying that it crossed my mind to record 4 to 6 minutes of myself being nonverbal, staring at the camera, just communication by facial expression and some body language. I did decide against that because I care about my grade, so we'll talk about it. The definition of nonverbal communication is all forms of communication without the use of actual words. There are some surprising statistics, a couple of them that I will share. About 93% of all communication is done through nonverbal cues. And of that 93%, about 55% of that is done through facial expression alone. Facial expression really is one of the most important forms of nonverbal communication. It can really tell a lot. It can really make or break the message being delivered by that person. Have you ever noticed talking to somebody and you're telling someone something and they're, rolling their eyes or looking the other direction? This really sends a message of them being just really bored and, not interested. Or, if you look at it the other way, have you been on the receiving end of the conversation and the person talking to you, they're not making eye contact with you at all. Maybe their eyes are, looking from top to bottom. They're looking from side to side, anything but making eye contact with yours. You know, this really is a sign of maybe they're dishonest. Maybe they're, not telling the truth. I want to share a funny example of facial expression. It was an episode of Friends, and it was the episode where Rachel tells Ross that she's pregnant with his baby. And Ross couldn't get any words out. He responded with his eyes and his mouth. His eyes got huge, so big to where they looked like they were going to pop out of his skull. And then his mouth kind of went into, it looked like what's now popular, the duck face mouth. So without the use of words, he really, it was pretty obvious to tell that he was in total shock and disbelief. There are other aspects of nonverbal communication as well that we'll talk about. One is called kinetics, and basically kinetics is any form of body language. The other aspect is called chronemics, and if you think of chronological order, chronemics is how we are regulated by time, basically. The other aspect is artifacts, and what artifacts are personal presence, personal appearance, basically. Our clothes, what type of clothes we're wearing, jewelry, makeup, maybe even what type of car we drive. You might notice being out in a social place and you see somebody dressed in designer clothing. Maybe they're wearing a lot of jewelry. Maybe you see them get into a nice fancy sports car. This might give the appearance that they have a lot of money and or hold a really high social status. So yeah, next time you're in public, maybe think to take a look at that. Another example that kind of came to mind was the ZZ Top song called Sharp Dressed Man, where they talk about every girl's crazy about a sharp dressed man, and they might be wearing a top hat, white gloves, black shades, that type of thing. You can get a picture of this type of person in your head and what type of message they might be sending just by the way they look. Another form of nonverbal communication we might not think about is actually silence. This is actually the least effective form of nonverbal communication. Think about if you're in a relationship and having a discussion and your significant other asks you if you want to talk about what's bothering you, and you just maybe look at them and zip your lip. that's only going to probably make the other person mad, and it's not going to take the conversation anywhere. Nothing's going to get accomplished. Nothing's going to get discussed. So keep that in mind. Silence is, again, it's a form of nonverbal communication, but it's definitely the least effective. So I guess I would say, in summary, be mindful of conversations you're having with somebody. Basically, actions speak louder than words. You might be saying something verbally to somebody. You might be telling them, hey, I really like what you're wearing today. But if you're rolling your eyes when you're saying it, it's going to mean something completely different. So there you go. So something to keep in mind. So there's my lecture on nonverbal communication. Thank you.